Hello everyone, how are you all doing? Sorry for the slow uploads lately, I'm in the middle of a move at the moment. And I may have played some of those computer games too. But today we will continue with our work with the house by adding something called a doorway. Let's get into it. Just a quick reminder, all of the code I cover in my videos can be found on GitHub. Each episode will have its own branch. There's also a Discord server for this channel. Come in and say hello. If you wish to go the extra mile to support my work, you can do that on my Buy My Coffee page or becoming a member here on YouTube. Links can be found in the description below. I think it's best if I do a quick explanation of what we're trying to accomplish today. We want a spot. Once the player reaches that spot, the map changes. For example, when we go to the doorway of a house, we wish to enter said house. We can also add some sort of checks later before allowing the map to change. For example, is the door locked, is the event or task complete before the player is allowed to enter, is the player's level high enough, and so on. But for today, however, we're gonna make it very simple. Once the player overlaps the hitbox of a doorway, we change the map to whatever map we wanted to change to. So let's first add the doorway class. And this doorway class, we can probably put it in the environment package, but it's going to have similarities to the entity class. But that's of course something we can change later, but I think it's best if we put it in the environments class or package here. And it's going to be a normal Java class and we're going to call it doorway. It could be called other things such as pathway, portal, what have you. But this doorway is going to need a hitbox, so let's just first add a private rect float and we're going to call it hitbox. We also need, we're not going to use it today, but we might as well add it. So private boolean active, meaning is the pathway or doorway active, equals true. And then we want some sort of game map reference, meaning if the player overlaps this doorway should change the map into something. So we need to store a game map here. So private final, because we're not going to change it, I don't think. Map, game map. I think that's the only ones we need, so let's just add our constructor here. Doorway. And this doorway will have a position. We need to say where the doorway is supposed to be, so float x, float y, float width, and float height. And then the game map, so game map, game maps. So when we are setting up this doorway, we're also saying where the doorway should be and also what game map it should change to. A game map could have many doorways, but a doorway will always only lead to one game map. So here we're gonna say this dot hitbox equals new rect x, y, and then it's x plus width, y plus height. Something like that, yes. And we're gonna say this dot game map equals game map. Alright. We will then of course need a way for checking if the player is overlapping the hitbox. So instead of just returning in the hitbox and then doing the check elsewhere, we're gonna ask for the hitbox of the player. So a public is player inside hitbox, or doorway better, inside doorway. If it's true, public boolean, of course, we need to return. We're just gonna ask for the player hitbox, so rect hitbox player hitbox. Maybe later enemies, NPCs, whatever can go inside a doorway, but for now we're only gonna care about the player. And then we will add a return hitbox. Our hitbox in this doorway class contains, yes, hitbox dot left, hitbox dot top, hitbox dot right, and hitbox dot bottom. So if this turns out to be true, then it returns true, otherwise it's gonna return false. What else? What else? Of course, we need to check if the active or if the doorway is active. So a public is active, but we're gonna change it to is doorway active. Sounds a little bit better. And of course we need a way of setting the active. So public set doorway active, boolean active. Oops, there we go. This dot active equals active. Public void, of course, not boolean. Oh, we also need to know if this one returns true when we're doing check. We say, okay, the player is in the hitbox. Now what? Then of course we need a getter for the GameMap. So public get GameMap return yes. I think that's all for our little doorway class. Yeah, we might come back and add something more or change something, but for now this is perfect. With this doorway class we're gonna run around in our GameMap and all of a sudden we overlap a doorway. So we need some way of checking for all the doorways in each game map. A game map usually going to have at least one doorway because we can enter, but we can't leave it. So most likely it's gonna have at least one doorway in each game map, but there could also be a lot more doorways. For example, you're running around in a village, there's gonna be a lot of buildings, a lot of doorways and so on. But all the doorways for this game map needs to be stored in that game map. So we're going to need a array list. I think is the best way to do this. Doorway array list, I'm gonna call it. I think it's better to specify that it's an array list rather than just say doorways. So doorway array list. And this array list will be started or initialized here. So this doorway array list equals new array list. We're not gonna give it any, oops, that's wrong. We're not gonna give any values yet or add anything to it. That's gonna be done in a separate method here. So public void add doorway. Ooh, that looks terrible. That looks better. And we're just gonna ask for a doorway, and then this dot doorway array list dot add doorway. Just like that. Somewhere we're gonna add or give this method a doorway, and it's gonna be stored in the doorway array list. But we also need a way of getting all the doorways. So public array list get doorway array list. Yes, that is looking fine. And I think that's all we need to do in our game map for now. What is this gray? We don't need a canvas. We don't need a game constants in here. If they're grayed out like this, means that they have been imported, but they're not being used. The import is not being used in this class, so we can remove it. Our next changes are going to happen in the buildings enum. And what we want to do is that for each houses, the doorway is located just a little bit different than on all the other houses. For example, we bring up the image. There we go. We have, just right now we only have one house, which is this one. And the doorway for this house is right here. So we need to specify the values where the doorway is and how big the doorway is in relationship to the house. And since we are starting with 0, 0 for this house, we can just check where the doorway is, and it's right here. So the starting position for the doorway is 17 and 32. The size is 14 and 15. And if we had another house, say this one, we would probably start right here. And then 0, 0 would be in this top corner, or actually here to be more exact. So 0, 0 would be here. And then we need to know in relationship to this corner, where is this doorway located? But since we're not using this house at all, we can just focus on this one. And the doorway was, what was it? 17, 32 for position and 14 and 15 in height. So in here, we're gonna specify 17, 32 and 14, 15. And for the constructor here, we say int doorway x, int doorway y, int doorway width, and int doorway height. So that's how we're gonna get the size and the position of the doorway for each houses. And later on, doorways may not be in a house, could be just somewhere, but for now, all doorways are gonna be connected to the house. And here we're gonna create the rectangle, so rectf hitbox, doorway we can call it. And in the constructor type here, we are going to say hitbox doorway equals new rect. And the position is going to have to be multiplied with the scale, because right now these values are not scaled up. Then we scale it up here when we create the actual image, so the hitbox needs to be scaled up as well. So all we have to do is to place these new values into this rectangle and also multiply it. So doorway x times scale multiplier, I think it's called, yes. We can enter here, doorway y times scale multiplier. And then we got right and bottom, it's not width and height, so it's doorway x plus doorway width times scale multiplier, or rather like that, to be sure it's going to be accurate. And for bottom, we go doorway y plus doorway height times scale multiplier. And we now have our doorway hitbox. And of course we need a getter, so public get hitbox doorway. Yeah, perfect. So if we were to add another house here, the position where the image is, and then the values in relationship to that image, not to the actual sprite atlas. So that's something to think about if we add more houses, but for now, this is all we need. What we would like to do now is that in our map manager, whenever we're done here setting up everything, we want to say that this map have these doorways. But how do we do that? If we take outside map, because outside map have a building, so outside map dot add doorway. But where is this doorway? Where's this? What do we do here? So we need some sort of method that combines the outside map to the inside map with the building. And the simplest way of doing this is by creating a helper class. They just have a bunch of random methods that you're gonna need once in a while, but it's not really needed inside a specific class. So in our helpers package, we can add a class called HelpMethods. And all these methods are gonna be public static, so public void static. And this one is going, we need maybe a name for it too. So add doorway to GameMap. It's gonna require the very GameMap. So GameMap, that is GameMap, and we can call this GameMap located in, where it's located, where the doorway is located in. Then we have a GameMap GameMap target, and of course we're gonna ask for the building, and we're gonna use int building index, and we're gonna work with this. And why are you public static void? I completely missed that one. There we go, that looks that looks better. Now public void static, public static void. And when we call this method, we're gonna say that the doorway is inside this game map, it should lead to this game map, and it's part of this building. So it's gonna be a lot of manual work. If we did it another way and we had an editor, we could somehow connect them all together, but here we're gonna have to do it manually because we're not building an editor. An editor for a game like this would be like half the work itself, so we're gonna have to do it the manual way because the game is not gonna be very big. It's just a proof of concept. So then of course people can build upon that how much they want. But for now, we're gonna stick with a very simple manual way of adding things. And we're gonna need to know where this doorway is located, and the doorway is located in the building, so we might as well finding out where the actual building is. We'll float house x is equal to GameMap located in get building array list get build index dot get position x. Yes, and then float doorway x is equal to house x plus GameMap located in get building array list again dot get build index, not building, build index, which should be called building refactor rename building index. There we go. Get the building index dot get building type dot get hitbox doorway and left. Maybe I need to minimize this so we can see the house position plus the actual doorway position. Yes, and we're gonna do the same for house y equals, we can probably just copy these two, and instead of house x, house y, doorway y, get y, and of course top. Yes, and then we have float width is equal to GameMap located in width, and we copy that again, and height, and we're gonna ask for height. So now we have the x, y, width and height of the actual hitbox. But didn't we actually add that already in our building? Yes, here. Can't I just use this? Because this is the position of the hitbox and width and height, and the doorway class is asking for the position. But why don't, and then it turns it to a hitbox, so we're doing it over and over here. Let's see if we can simplify this. But we do need the position of the house on the map, and then we add the position of the hit. Maybe we just ask for a rectangle here or a rectangle here actually. Rect F, hit doorway, hit box. We remove this equals doorway hitbox. I think this is gonna work. And in the helper methods, we remove that, and maybe even that. We're doing it a little bit wrong here, but I think this is gonna work. So we can probably just say doorway equals new doorway. It's only ask for a rectangle, but we might as well get it first. So rect F hitbox equals GameMap located in get building array list dot get building index dot get building type get hitbox doorway. Yes, so now we have the hitbox, but it's not placed correctly. So we say new rectangle hitbox dot left plus house x hitbox dot top plus house y. And then of course we need to do it the long way. Right plus house x, and last is hitbox dot bottom plus house y. And it needs a target, which is GameMap target. Beautiful. So let's just double check here. The doorway equals new doorway with a rectangle, hitbox left plus house x, hitbox top, house y, right house x, and bottom house y. And the GameMap target, perfect. So then, GameMap located in dot add doorway. So yeah, I think that is correct. So we go back to our map manager and just say, not add like that, we call HelpMethods.add doorway to GameMap. Our outside map is where it's located in. Our target is our inside map, and our building index is 0 because we only have one building and we know it's gonna be 0. So now that should work. And now we just need to add a code that checks if the player is on a doorway, and if he is, then the player or the game map changes. So first we need a public void change map, and this is inside our map manager. So change map to, well, GameMap, and this dot current map equals GameMap. And this is a good example why we have something called a current map, and then we just change that back and forth. But that's not all. We also need a method that returns the doorway if we are on a doorway, or returns true if we are on a doorway. And I think we're just going to return a doorway if we are on a doorway. If we're not on a doorway, we return null, and if it's null, then we do nothing. But if it returns a doorway, then we change it. So public doorway is player on doorway. We're asking for the rectangle F player hitbox. For doorway, and we're gonna use currentMap.getDoorway array list. So now we're looping through all the different doorways. So if doorway dot is player inside doorway, and then player hitbox. But I just realized that we have camera. Is that going to work? Let's check here. Oops, that's wrong. So we're just asking for the hitbox, and we're not taking into account the camera. But we need to do that. So we could just ask for it here. Yeah, let's see. Are they? They're float. Yeah. So float camera X, float camera Y. Are we gonna plus or minus? Because the player, this is the position of the that never changes, but the player, so that is going to change. We're gonna go minus. I think it is minus. We'll see. Camera X, camera Y, camera X, and the last one minus camera Y. So now map manager, right? What's that? Oh, here we go. And then camera X, camera Y. If that's the truth, if that is the case, return doorway. Else we're gonna return null. If all those checks fails, then we just return null. And if it's null, then we do nothing. So this method needs to be called in our playing somewhere. The camera values should probably be moved to right after we updated the player. And then we do everything else. Yeah. And then underneath here, we go check for doorway. And we create that method, and doorway equals, we're at a doorway player is on equals map manager get, no, not get, but is player on player dot get the hitbox for the player. If doorway player is on is not equal to null, then we say map manager change map door players on dot get the game map. I think that is good enough. So let's check here. So we get a doorway if the player overlaps a doorway. If it's not, then it's null and we do nothing. And I think this is all. Should we test this? I think we should. All right, it's started up. That's good. And we start in the house, which is not the correct map, so let's change that. Map manager, current map is equal to outside map. Maybe we should put that after. Yeah, let's do it like that. And let's run this. So now we should spawn on the outside map. Everything else works. The skeletons doing their thing. I'm just running here, not hitting the doorway on purpose. What happens if I overlap the doorway? Nothing. Why is that? Well, it took me a few minutes, but the issue is right here. We are checking the current hitbox with the current hitbox. We're checking the same hitbox for the same hitbox. So that's not how it should be. It should be if the player hitbox contains, I think that's the quickest. So if the player hitbox contains the hitbox, it should work. And we also need to change this to plus then. Plus, plus, and plus. Hopefully this will work. It's not guaranteed, but hopefully. So let's go up here to the doorway. No, still nothing. Alright, so I did a quick check here and we can stop it. The play left and the hitbox left plus the camera X seems to be close enough for it to actually be true. But yet again, it's wrong. It says returns true if the four specified sides of a rectangle are inside or equal to this rectangle. That's not right. It should be contains intersects, right? If the top, right, and bottom intersects will return true and sets. Returns true if the specified rectangle and this rectangle intersects. And this rectangle is then set to that. No. Intersect. Not set intersects, but intersects. Returns true if no, we're not gonna set it. We're not gonna set it true. Intersect. True if the specified rectangle intersects with the triangle. In no event this rectangle is modified. So it intersects, not contains. So that should probably do it. Let's see if it works this time. Those checks are a bit weird, but alright. Hey! We changed the game map. When we hit that. Let's try that again. Alright, let's just run close to it. Let's close. No. Perfect. And as soon as I overlap a little bit of my hitbox with the doorway hitbox, we changed the game map. Beautiful. That's all we wanted to do today. And it's working. Of course, we spawn in a weird position. You should spawn where, well, it looks like where the actual doorway is, and it should be a doorway out of this building. But for now, we just wanted to do a change if we hit a game map. And of course, those pesky skeletons are running around doing the same thing regardless of the game map. But that's an issue to solve later. But for now, we was outside and then we was inside by using a doorway. Alright, there we go. We did it. Now we can move from the outside map to the inside by using our new doorway. More work will be done on this in the next video, so make sure that you don't miss that either. Until the next episode, take care now and have a wonderful day. Cheers!